Welcome back to another episode of Creative Discipline with TheZachMichael. Today we're going to be talking about something that I think is really important to building a career in the music business, and that is how to deal with rejection. Rejection is just really hard. I'll be fully transparent. I think it's one of those things that I think every creative person who pursues this as a career has to learn how to overcome, and you have to learn how to deal with it. It's definitely something that I think a lot of people aren't used to, or prior to your creative career or on that pursuit. A lot of times you aren't really taught how to properly deal with rejection, and I think in music especially, there's a lot of rejection at all stages of your career, whether you're an up-and-coming musician or an established one making millions of dollars a year. There's still plenty of rejection on all levels, and I think a lot of people don't know how to properly deal with it. So today we're gonna have an episode. I'm gonna break down a bit of how I deal with rejection, things that I think you should learn about, and kind of how to pivot your career in a way where you get to kind of control your destiny a little more, right? And let's get started on the first thing about how to deal with rejection in the music business, which is realizing that one no doesn't mean your career is a no, right? I think a lot of people put all their eggs in this one basket of this is the thing that's gonna make my career, and they get told no on it, right? Like the amount of producers I know who spend a year trying to get on this one album and they don't get on the album, so they say, oh, my career is over, I'm not on this album that I've been working hard for. When in reality, that one no doesn't mean it's a forever no. It only takes one yes to really change your life, right? I think for me, in my experience as like a sync composer, there have been plenty of times where a track has been rejected by a big brand, and then a different brand will buy that track a year later, or 2 years later, or 3 months later. You never really know. Like that one no is not necessarily always going to be a no. It could change. Like I play plenty of beats for artists where when I play the beat, they say no. And then I play it for a different artist 2 weeks later and they record a crazy record on it and we make a song out of that beat. So you just never know. I always tell people, like, don't get too caught up in that one no, right? I think as a songwriter, you pitch a lot of songs to artists and sometimes they're going to say no to them. And you should still shop that song around to someone else because it might be a yes to someone else. Keep that in mind. Don't really lose sight of that one no. Doesn't necessarily change anything. I mean, me at my career at this point, as someone who's done hundreds of records and millions of streams and a lot of sync campaigns and things like that, I still get told no all the time. I think that'll never really go away. I talk to guys with millions of followers and they still get told no all the time. And I think just recognizing that it's not about getting told no because you only need those couple yeses. So stay consistent. If you're an upcoming producer, keep sending out music to guys, right? Like if an artist says no to your first pack, send them 15 more packs over the year and they might say yes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those beats at some point, right? You want to stay consistent and not be so caught up in that one no, right? You can't let it affect you. You can't let that rejection stop you. You need to stay disciplined, right? And that's the next point, is you really need to stay disciplined even when you're getting rejected. You can't let rejection affect your discipline. It may affect your motivation or your inspiration, and that's something you also have to overcome. But you can never let it affect your discipline, right? Even if you're getting annoyed or bummed out that these artists are rejecting your beats, or these labels are rejecting your songs, or these sync companies don't want to use your tracks, you have to stay disciplined. You have to stay consistent. You still need to be making music often. You still need to be improving your craft. You still need to be improving your collaborative process and improving your relationships with people and things like that. You have to stay disciplined even when you're rejected, right? And I think it's important to recognize that rejection is not personal. The reality of rejection is that a lot of times it's just not a personal thing, right? Obviously, that's very hard to understand at first because as a creative, you feel like you are connected to your art. You feel like it is personal because your art is personal, right? And that's totally understandable. I mean, of course, you want to put a lot of yourself into your music and your art. I do this myself. I put a ton of myself into my music. I spend a lot of time on it. I put a lot of sacrifice in order to do this full time, things like that. And so, of course, it's personal to me, but you need to recognize that being rejected is not personal. A lot of times it's about not necessarily your piece of music being the right fit, or it could be the wrong timing. So to go back to the fit one, I think that's just important to recognize that the right fit for the right person, right? I think a lot of times I play a beat for one artist and they say no, and then the second or third artist might say yes. And that just lets me show that the beat is still the right fit. It's just not for the right person. And you just got to find the right person who it makes sense to give that piece of music to. I think that happens all the time. I mean, there's plenty of songs I make where I'll make a chorus with an artist and we'll make like a hook. We're trying to get verses on it. And there'll be a lot of people who reject that chorus, but eventually one artist comes around and they really like it and they're a great fit for that song and they record a crazy verse. I mean, this happens on tons of my records, right? And I also think it's important to recognize that with rejection, a lot of it is about timing. A lot of brands have said no to my music at certain points as a sync supervisor, right? Like when I'm pitching music to these companies, I kind of act as a supervisor in some way, right? Because I'm pitching and choosing what's going to get shopped around, right? Obviously, there's still the actual supervisor at the company who has to decide what, they buy and what they don't. But I do decide what songs I shop to them and what songs I pitch to them. And sometimes it's just not the right timing. Like when you pitch that record to their team, they might say no to it. And then a year or two later, you can pitch it again. And now they have the right movie or the right advertisement that it makes sense for that music. So you need to understand that it's not really personal, that rejection. You have to understand that it's more about like the right fit and the right timing. And it's just something very important to recognize, right? I think timing applies to all aspects, though. It's not just on the sync side. I think a lot of times producers want to push the sound forward that an artist makes. And that's incredible, by the way. And we need more producers who do that. But you also need artists who are willing and want to push their sound forward. There's plenty of people who are trying to send, a certain genre of beat to an artist who never uses that style. But then if that artist decides they want to make an album in that style, well, now it's the right time to send them those pieces of music. They're going to be more interested in hearing them. Now they want those, right? And you just want to keep this in mind throughout your entire career, is that you want to make sure the timing is right for things and recognize that it's hard to necessarily always know. So a lot of these rejections are just not the right timing, and you just need to stay at it and stay disciplined and stay consistent and not kind of demotivate yourself because the timing maybe isn't right yet, right? And I also think it's important to learn from rejection. Now, obviously, you have to be cautious of this, right? Because there are a lot of people who are going to reject you, and they're going to reject you either with bad criticism that just isn't really worth taking, or they're going to reject you with excuses, right? But if they reject you with good constructive criticism, you want to learn from that, right? If you're being rejected by someone's opinion that you respect and value, you should learn from that rejection and learn what you can do better and how you can improve your art and improve your craft and really take that to heart and really learn from it. I think rejection is a great catalyst to improve your skills and improve your craft. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. But again, you have to be cautious of who you're getting rejected by, because sometimes someone will reject you and it's, again, just not the right fit or the right timing. And that one no doesn't necessarily mean that piece of music needs to be scrapped, because it could be someone else's yes, right? So obviously you want to learn from rejection, but you don't want to let one person necessarily sway you and your craft too much in one way, because it might have just been the wrong person that you were pitching it to, right? It might have been the wrong person that you were sending that music to. And you just need to find the right person or the right opportunity for that music. And maybe it would be a yes, like an undeniable yes. So you want to learn from rejection and improve from it for sure, especially if you're going to build a long-term relationship with the person who's rejecting you. Being willing to take that constructive criticism is massive, right? I mean, me as a producer, me as a composer, me as a songwriter, my favorite people to work with, my favorite people to collaborate with are guys who learn from constructive criticism, who learn from rejection that we get on these opportunities, and they just continue to grow and build and cultivate these skill sets and music that allow them to be a much more successful musician, right? And now we're going to get to the main point of today's episode. In my opinion, the most valuable aspect of this opinion, of this whole episode and this opinion on how to deal with rejection in the music business. And that is that you should focus on what you can control. I think I'm a testament of building a career in a way where I focus on what I can control. And the reason for that is because I operate like a business. I want to be a full-time musician, so I need to operate like a business. I've always said that, and now I'm able to be at a point where I am full-time, and I still operate like a business. I think that's important. It can be a creative business, but it needs to be a business. And for that to make sense, you need to focus on what you can control, right? So with that being said, you need to create revenue streams and aspects of your business that you are the decider of the yes or no, that you decide the rejection on your own stuff. So let's kind of break this down. So some ways that I do that in my career, right? One of the first ones that I do is I release instrumental music every single week. I have multiple brands that I put music under, such as like Sleeping Shark, which has done millions of streams. It's a lo-fi brand that I release music under. And I have a bunch of other ones as well. And those releases are totally up to me. I am the decider of what goes out, what doesn't. I am the decider of which tracks and collaborations get rejected, which ones get accepted, which ones I push, all these things like that. It's totally up to me. And I can control that, right? I obviously can't control how well the music performs all the time. Obviously, I can put my best foot forward. But at the end of the day, of course, the listeners have to like it and have to want to hear it. But I can control how much music comes out. I can control how many darts I'm going to shoot to hit a bullseye. I can control how often and how frequently I'm going to release this music. I can control who I work with and who I don't, right? And this is something very important. A lot of people never build an aspect of their career that they can control. And this is why I see a lot of musicians come and go, right? You can focus on building your brand. You can focus on building social media content. You can focus on your own releases as an artist. It's why I think producers should become producer artists and do what EDM DJs and Metro Boomin do, where they drop their own music featuring vocalists. I think that you can do that because you can control that a lot more, right? Metro Boomin obviously gets a lot of placements, but also it's out of his control whether those songs come out or not. Whereas if they're on his album, he decides the track list, which songs go, which songs get a music video, which songs, they want to push. Now, obviously, there's other people on the team who contribute to that, but he has a lot more control that way. And I think when you're building your career as a creative in this business, you want to make sure that there's some things that you can control, right? In addition to my instrumental music, I control my kit business. I have a sound kit business that does like drum kits and software VST presets, which is like the sounds that producers use in their beats. And I have a bunch of other types of products on my website. I've done over 150 products. I'm going to have 200, 300, 400 in the future. And that's something I control. I control how often I release my products. I control the price. I control whether they're free, whether they're paid. I control every single aspect of that business. And that's one pillar in my business. I absolutely still pursue things that are out of my control, such as being on other artists' albums. That's out of my control. I don't get to decide whether my song that I produce makes the album or not. But while I still pursue that and I care about that, I'm super passionate about that, I also focus on what I can control. And there's a lot of different ways to diversify that control, right? You can release music, you can build an online brand or an online presence through different social media platforms, whether that's a brand around you as a musician directly, or whether it's a platform that you build that maybe spotlights other creatives in the space, like an actual brand outside of a personal brand. I think that's something that you can do. You can also diversify your approach by building closer relationships with your collaborators and maybe getting to a point where you will have equal control to your collaborator in a lot of ways. And I just think there's a lot of different things that you can do to focus on what you can control, because then you have to deal with less rejection, right? Because a lot of creative people really struggle with the idea of rejection. It's very personal. It hurts a lot of people. It demotivates people, and it makes them lose a lot of inspiration for their craft. And maybe they start to doubt themselves and their skills. And focusing on what you can control removes a lot of that stress and removes a lot of that anxiety around having to deal with rejection, right? Because it definitely can be crippling for certain musicians. So learning how to deal with it is very important. But another way that you can kind of get around that is just build a career where you're less reliant on other people and it's more on what you can control and what you can do, right? Of course, I'm not saying that you should build a career that doesn't have anything you can't control, because I think the reality of most professional musicians is that there's certain things that are just out of your control, and you just work really hard at them, and you hope that things go right, and you hope that you have the right timing and the right fit and things like that. But also having some things that you can control is a really nice way to supplement that income, or supplement steady releases of music, or supplement building a brand. All these things can be done when you have certain things that you can control as a musician. And I'm sure this applies to all creative fields, right? I think this is why you see actors, when they get very successful and they get to a point where they're able to start directing and writing movies as well as starring in the movie, because now you have a lot more control over the movie. You can cast yourself in your movie, as opposed to, just having to do auditions all day where there's a lot of rejection. And it doesn't really matter how good of an actor you are. If they say yes or they say no, it's up to them. It doesn't matter, you know, what you think. It's completely on other people. And it's similar like that in music in a lot of ways. So you want to make sure that you build a career where there's less rejection to have to focus on. It's going to take you a lot further. And it's also just going to keep you disciplined and keep you motivated and keep you inspired way easier, right? And there's tons of different ways, obviously, to do that. Another thing I think is super important when we talk about how to deal with rejection in the music business is recognizing that it's okay to get rejected, right? I think a lot of people put this undeniable pressure on themselves that their music is too good. I can't get rejected. I've worked too hard at this. I can't get rejected. I have too much at stake right now. There's too much on the line. I can't afford to get rejected. And the reality is you absolutely can. The top musicians, I talk to all these multi-platinum, Grammy-winning producers, songwriters, composers, guys who, you know, have $1 million brands and $1 million businesses, and they still get rejected, right? And so recognizing that no one rejection is going to make or break your career is going to be something that really opens up your perspective, right? You want to shoot as many shots as possible. You want to hit a bullseye, right? So if you want to hit a bullseye, you want to shoot as many darts as possible. The odds of you making a bullseye, if you shoot 10,000 shots, is way higher than if I only give you one dart, right? And with that being said, that's why you want to be shooting a lot of shots. You want to take a lot of chances. You want to reach out. You want to, you know, put yourself in positions where people can say yes or no often, even if the no's are way higher than the yeses. And I would personally argue that if you're, especially in the earlier stages of your career, you should be in a position where you're getting told no way more than being told yes. If you're not ever really being told no and you're really only ever being told yes, you're probably not shooting for big enough opportunities or big enough projects, because you should be getting a lot of no's. You should be getting a lot of people who aren't necessarily super invested in the thing you're making. But you need to get those no's and get used to that, because as you grow and grow and grow in your career, the no's are only going to start to feel, and air quotes around feel, they're going to start to feel more serious, right? They're going to start to have more cost. It's easy to get rejected when that no is on a $25 beat lease. It's a lot harder when that no is on like a really big artist album, right? Like, it's possible your song gets cut from Rihanna's album 3 days before it's supposed to drop. That no is going to sting a lot more, right? So you want to kind of build up the muscle of getting used to being rejected and not putting so much weight into whether it's accepted or rejected, and just focus on the craft and focus on the consistency and the discipline. And that's truthfully just the biggest blessing of my career, is that I've been able to focus on discipline, and I don't get too affected by the yeses or nos anymore. The reality is they're just a part of the game, and they're a part of this industry. And if you want to be successful in the industry, I think you need to get to a point where you can deal with rejection and recover from rejection very quickly. I'm not saying that rejection shouldn't affect you. There's been plenty of times where I've been rejected and, you know, it stings a little bit, or it definitely has made me less inspired, or it's made me maybe need to take a couple-hour break from music, or potentially a couple days, or wherever you're at in your career, and however long you want that break to be is up to you. But it's okay to, you know, be affected by rejection, but you need to recognize that you need to push through that and you need to overcome that, because otherwise you put yourself in this position where you're at the mercy of other people. And if you want to do this as a career, you want to be able to handle rejection, because that's important. It just is. There's no way around it. That is a part of the music business, so you need to be able to handle that. But if you guys enjoy this episode of Creative Discipline, I hope you guys learned something from it. I hope that you learned a bit about how to deal with rejection in the music business and how I have personally dealt with rejection in the music business. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you guys in the next episode.